You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. You're listening to the Dolphins Talk fan series, introducing you to some of the Miami Dolphins' biggest fans. If you'd like to nominate a fan to appear on the show, shoot us an email at dolphinstalk1977@gmail.com or send us a message on Twitter at DolphinsTalk. And now, here's today's episode of the Dolphins Talk fan series.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans, and welcome to another episode of the DolphinsTalk.com fan series. I am your host, Mike, joined by Ian Berger, 2020 Miami Dolphins Fan of the Year. Ian, how you doing today?
Hey, what's happening, Mike? I absolutely love our guest today. I love his story and how he became a Dolphins fan, so I'm not going to take any more time. I'm going to let you introduce him.
Yeah, absolutely, because as we always say with this fan series, the Miami Dolphins have one of the largest and most diverse fan bases in the NFL, with fans in all 50 states and countries around the world. This podcast series is to help our listeners get to know some of those fans a little bit better. Some of those fans we talk to, you may already know through their social media presence. Others you may be learning about and meeting for the very first time. This is one I've been looking forward to. So everyone give a warm DolphinsTalk.com welcome to Tone Toto. Tone, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I love your podcast. Your podcast gets me through the season, especially after wins.
Absolutely, especially after
always more fun to do after wins. Always more fun.
Matter of fact, the first thing I think about after a win is, oh my God, tomorrow morning I get to listen to the good podcasts.
That's right.
Yes.
That's
Like
right. And usually after a loss, I don't listen to anything for an entire week. That's usually how I'll do it.
That's
It
why
is harder.
I do the show with Ian on Wednesdays and I do the show with Tom on Sunday nights. Ian, give me a few days. We get grumpy Tom.
I am looking forward to the Super Bowl winning podcast one day.
Oh, that would be the greatest podcast we ever do.
Well, I will be.
So, Tone, let's talk about your story, because your story is unique, and I know it, Ian knows it, but it's one that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in. So, first off, our first standard question we always start with, where are you from, and how did you become a fan of the Dolphins, which I know you're sort of going to go down that road. So, tell us where you're from and how you became a fan.
I am from Pennsylvania, so I'm up north. And I've never been to a game before down in Florida, and I'm going to my first game this year. I'm going to the Carolina game. So, Big
Nice.
E, hopefully I see you there.
Absolutely.
I'm excited. So we can talk about that off camera. But how did I become a fan? All right, here's the story. Well, I'm 49 years old, and I was born in 1972, which must have been a destiny for me to be a Dolphins fan when you're born in 1972. But for the first 10 years of my life, I didn't follow sports. I didn't follow anything as far as like football goes or any of that. So my sister's boyfriend, when I'm about 10 years old, took me in the backyard, showed me a football, started to throw the football with me, and we shared a favorite team. He said to me, let's follow these things called the Miami Dolphins. Now, before I get into my relationship with this gentleman and him showing me how to introducing me to the sport, let me backtrack just a little bit. When I was a kid, before the age of 10, my father was extremely abusive towards my mother. He wasn't abusive towards me, maybe a little mental abuse, but nothing really physical. But he was very, very physically abusive towards my mother. Matter of fact, when my mom turned 36 years old, her birthday gift was a black eye. So what I saw was a lot of like horrible things in my household. So my sister had the boyfriend I mentioned that taught me how to throw a football. She had a boyfriend before that. So this was her first boyfriend. So her first boyfriend, he really saw the abuse that my dad was doing to my mother. And he said to my mother, why don't we kill him? Why don't we get rid of your dad? Sorry, why don't we get rid of your husband? I didn't know this at the time, sorry.
Yeah.
So he decides to kill my father. Now, fortunate for my father is this guy, my sister's first boyfriend, was an idiot. And he still is. So he decides to kill my father with ingenious ways. So let me describe some of the ways he tried to kill my father. My father owned a pizza shop, And when he'd come home from work late at night, because he owned his own business, he would come home like 2, 3 in the morning. He would always, now I know you're going to be hearing this on the radio or on a podcast, so I can't really show what I'm about to do, like the way my dad would park his car. So I'm going to describe it the best way I can. He would make like a U shape when he would come home. Now, at the bottom of where the U shape is, there's a tree. My sister's boyfriend would hang out right behind the tree with a gun. When my father was going to make this U pattern, when he got to the bottom of the U where the tree is, he was going to shoot my father right through the car. On that particular day, my father decides to park and drive a different way to the house, and he missed his chance. All right, shot number 1, no pun intended, done. So a few days go by, and he says, you know what? Here's how I'm going to kill him this time. I'm going to blow up his car. I'm going to put a bomb in his car. The day before, it rained. Washed the explosive away. My dad goes to start the car. Nothing happens. He's none the wiser. He goes to work.
And Tone, just I know you're continuing, but you had no idea this stuff was happening.
No
right?
idea. No, I knew there was abuse going on because I saw that. But as far as them trying to kill him, no clue. I'm an 8, 9-year-old kid at this time.
Right.
So anyway, so they decided to do this to him. He was going to leave in the middle of the night because one of the other things my dad would do was he'd cheat on my mom. So when he was going to leave the house around, let's say 2, 3 in the morning to go visit a girlfriend or two, they were going to tie a wire to the top of the steps. And let's face this, 2, 3 in the morning, you're not going to see this wire in the dark. As he was going to walk out, he was going to trip over the wire. And there was going to be a guy on the end at the bottom of the steps that was going to beat him with a baseball bat. On that particular day, the wire fell. My dad just goes off on his merry way again. Then there was another time where there are all these bushes around my parents' house. There was a guy waiting in the bushes with a baseball bat. As my dad was going to walk in, he was going to bash his brains in. As the guy lifts the bat in the air, it gets caught in the branch. My dad looks to his left, and the guy takes off and runs away. So my dad survives all these plots to try and kill him. But then here's what happens. I'm going to fast forward the story because we want to get to the Dolphins part. My sister ends up breaking up with this guy. She dates another guy, the guy that shows me how to play football. Now, I like this new guy. This guy was nice to me. He paid me attention. Matter of fact, my sister's original boyfriend was such a mean guy that, and I hate to get a little graphic with your listeners out there, but there was one time he literally tied me up to a bed and burned my feet with lighters. So this new guy comes in and he's nice to me. He pays me attention. So he teaches me how to throw a football and I start to fall in love with this Dolphin team. Now this is 82. Now, as you guys know, this is the strike year. So now I really want to get in this team and I want to watch these games. And every Sunday I turn the TV on and there's no games. There's no games because we're going through a strike. So all you younger listeners out there, we didn't have the internet back in 82. You know, we didn't know. I didn't even know who they were playing. I just turned on TV. Oh, they're playing this Bills team. I can't wait to watch it. But there was nothing on TV. So what I did was I studied the sport. I memorized every player. I memorized every Super Bowl up to that point. There were 16 Super Bowls up to that point. And I became like such a student of the game. And I did that because I had to cope with my family's issues of my dad being really abusive. It kept my mind off of what was going on. So finally, the strike is over. This is the snowplow year, if you remember the Patriot game when they lost 3-0. And back then, some of the games weren't televised. So you're literally like just hanging on like that little ticker on the bottom, which they didn't even
10
have
minutes every then. 10 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. It wasn't even a 10-minute ticker back then. You're just like waiting for like any highlight you can get. Kids do not realize how lucky they have it. So anyway, the season goes on and I'm falling more and more in love with this team. And I mean, if you remember from the strike shortened season, it was an abbreviated season. Miami ends up going 7-2. We were the second best team in the AFC record wise. The Raiders had an 8-1 season. And I got to admit, as a 10-year-old kid, I was afraid of those Raiders. I didn't want to play them in the playoffs. So first round comes, as you guys know, we beat the Patriots. Second round comes, we play the Chargers. Now I remember the hype going into that game. this was the revenge game because the year before was that Kellen Winslow game.
Yep.
So I remember saying to myself, oh, we got to get revenge on this team. Even though I don't remember the game from the year before, we got to win this game. Miami jumps out to a 24-0 lead, and we smash them. Now the next week comes, and we're playing our hated rivals, the Jets. It's all I thought about. I mean, my mind was just, we gotta beat these Jets. We gotta beat this team, and then we can go to the Super Bowl. And considering all the stuff I saw in my life, I wanted this so badly. But then this happened. The AFC Championship game is on January 23rd, 1983. It was that muddy, rainy game, and to this day, when I see a muddy, rainy game, I get excited because that A.J. Dewey intercepted.
A.J. Dewey
ran that last one back, and we won 14-0. We're going to the dance. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, my favorite team is going to the Super Bowl. This is so exciting. So January 23rd, they win the game 14-0, and I knew we were playing the Redskins. I was afraid of them. I knew their team was good. I knew we had a good defense. I was afraid of our offense. I have to admit it. I mean, even as a 10-year-old kid, I didn't think, God rest his soul, I know David Woodley has passed, but I never thought he was that great. I thought he was like just average. And I was like, you know what? Our defense needs to carry us. So I was afraid of those Redskins because, John Riggins, he was a bull. I mean, even though like they had an older team, I still said to myself, that's going to be a tough game. But then this happened. That guy that taught me how to throw a football, that sat next to me watching those games, he saw the abuse that my dad was doing to my mother. And he said to my mother, I'll kill him. So 3 days later, January 26, 1983, I go to school. This guy, my sister's second boyfriend, the one who taught me how to throw a football, walks into my parents' bedroom while my dad is sleeping, takes out my father's gun, shoots him in the back of the head. My father does not die. So the day goes on. I'm at school. I don't know this is going on. I come home, and you could tell something's wrong in the house. My mother's a panic. The guy that taught me how to throw a football that was super nice to me had like a sullen look to him. He was upset, but I didn't know what was going on. So my mother tells me that my father's sick, and he's lying in bed. My mother wants to hasten his death. So she gives him soup laced with barbiturates.
Jesus Christ.
What it turns out is it slows down my dad's bleeding and it keeps him alive. So here they are waiting around for my dad to die, waiting for my dad to die. All I'm thinking about is Super Bowl. Because back then, I don't know if your listeners know this, but because of the strike shortened season, there wasn't a 2-week window. The Super Bowl was going to be played that Sunday. So here I am as a 10-year-old kid. That's all I'm thinking about. Super Bowl. So January 26th, he gets shot. So my sister's boyfriend, he lost his nerve. He can't finish the job. So he goes to my father's pizza shop, and he finds these 2 random guys on the street and says to them, hey, want to make $500? I need you to kill this guy. He's already half dead. All you got to do is finish the job. So January 28th, sitting on a couch sleeping because my mother would not let me go past my father's bedroom for some odd reason. And I'm sleeping on that couch. It's 10 o'clock at night. And all of a sudden, I'm awoken to a gunshot. And I see these 2 guys run right past me. They went into my father's bedroom, and they went to shoot him in the chest. And I'm not going to lie. I haven't lied at all. But let me tell you what's literal court testimony. While these 2 guys are in my parents' bedroom, they want to shoot him in the heart. But they don't know what side his heart is on. So they literally do the Pledge of Allegiance in my parents' bedroom to know what side the heart was on. They then shoot my dad in the chest, miss his heart by 1 inch. My father gets up, walks out of the bedroom, comes into the living room. I see this. And my dad looks at me, looks at my mother and goes, what's he doing here? Pointing to my sister's boyfriend. He didn't see the 2 guys that shot him. They're now hiding behind the couch. They literally ran right past me. My mother takes my dad, brings him back to bed. All right. Me as a kid, I'm like, what's going on here? I didn't notice any blood on his chest. I just noticed his hair was all messed up, but I didn't notice this stuff. I'm kind of still groggy from just literally waking up from what I didn't know was a gunshot at the time. It just sounded like a firecracker or something like that. So I didn't know. So anyway, I went back to sleep, still thinking about my Dolphins. So then 2 days later, the Super Bowl comes, January 30th, 1983. Now, I got to admit, I was really, really nervous for this game. Even though I'm a confident fan, I was worried that we'd be the first team to ever get shut out of the Super Bowl. That's how much I was concerned about our offense. Not our defense, no problem. But I was concerned about our offense. So the game starts, and if you guys remember this game, David Woosley throws in the very beginning, throws like a short pass to Jimmy Cephalo. He takes this short 15-yard pass, runs 76 yards in the end zone. My first thought is, we're not going to get shut out. Oh, my goodness, we're up 7-0. I'm 10 years old is how I'm thinking. So anyway, the game goes back and forth. It's 10-10, and I'm like, oh, no, here it comes. We're going to start to lose. We kick off to Fulton Walker. Runs that baby back 98 yards. Here's what a lot of people don't know. Inside the NFL was a show that was on HBO, hosted by Len Dawson and Nick Bonacani. Nick Bonacani, former Dolphin. Nick Bonacani that week literally said, there has never been a kick return for a touchdown in a Super Bowl, but Fulton Walker could be the first one. When Fulton Walker returns that in the end zone, my first thought was, Nick Bonacani was right. How did he predict that? So we're up 17-10. At that very moment, there's a knock at the door. And it's a police officer at the door. My mom opens the door. Police officer says to my mother, where's my dad? My mom panics, says he's not here. And now, meanwhile, I'm saying to myself, well, wait a minute. I know dad's in the next room. Something's going on. Next thing I know, it seemed like the whole police force was outside my house and now in my house. So I'm watching this game and I'm looking back and forth and there's cops in the house. I see my dad get wheeled out. He's yelling for my mom. He's saying, are you coming to the hospital? My mom's like, I'm right behind you, even though she wasn't going to be right behind him. I hear my sister get on the phone and she's crying and she's saying, my mom's just been arrested. My mom gets taken out in cuffs and the cops start looking for the attempted murder weapon. Now, here's what TV does not tell you about when cops come to your house to look for a murder weapon or an attempted murder weapon. They're not nice when they're looking for that gun.
No, they ripped that place up.
They ripped that place apart. So I'm literally watching the Dolphins-Redskin game, and they're tearing my house apart right around me. So meanwhile, the game's going on, gets to be about the third, early fourth quarter, and they're just rummaging the house, destroying it, taking everybody out, arresting who's there. Now, I have a younger brother who's 7 years old, and all of a sudden, the cop looks at me and he goes, listen, we have to go. Where am I going to go? You have to go to a foster home. I have to take you somewhere. I go, oh, no, I want to watch this game. I want to watch this game. So all of a sudden, it's that 4th and 1 play. They pitched it to Riggins. He goes right down the right hand at the side, 43 yards, scores that touchdown. The cop looks at me and goes, time to go, kid. It's the last play of that game I saw. I knew it at that moment, like my life was forever going to be different from a personal standpoint to a Finn standpoint.
Yeah. I
get to this police station because they had to take us in and, they had to arrest my mother and everybody. And I see my mother, she's in a cell. Other members are in the cell. The guy that shot my father's in a cell. I walk past them. It looked like a scene out of Empire Strikes Back. And I remember I looked at the cop and I go, who won the game? Because by this time the game's over. Told me the Redskins won. Whew, can you talk worst day of your life?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Can you talk worst day of your life? So I go to a foster home and, then something weird happens. My father recovers, bails my mother out of prison, and they get back together. So now this story, which was a local story at the time, now becomes a national story. And now everybody wants to talk about this story because now my parents are now back together. And I got to tell you guys and everybody listening out there, my parents are still together to this day.
Unbelievable.
So, my dad bails my mother out of prison. He still has the bullet in the back of his head. He survives. But my life is like turned a little upside down because, a lot upside down, because now I got to live with this crazy story. So my dad bails my mother out of prison. But here's the thing. Even though my father drops all the charges, there are still charges that they have to levy on her because she committed attempted murder. So I have to cope with this. So now 83 rolls around and we draft some quarterback. I don't know if you ever heard of him, called Dan Marino. And I still remember like being a kid, not knowing how to draft worked. I said to one of my friends, I go, hey, who did Miami draft? And he literally said to me, some quarterback. So the 83 season comes and now we got Dan Marino. And man, do I fall head over heels for this sport. Because in the background of my life, my father, my mother, they're preparing for trial. I have to keep my mind off of it. So the 83 season, Marino's rookie season, I'm glued to this set. I'm watching every game I can. I'm studying this sport. I'm playing the sport with my friends. I'm dreaming of one day making it to the NFL myself, which never happened, by the way. But I'm dreaming of this moment. Like it became my escape. So then in March of 84, my mother gets sentenced to prison. She gets sentenced to 4 years in prison. March of 84, she gets sentenced to prison. September of 84 is the new season. That is the magical 84 season. That's the Marino season where he threw for 5,084 yards, 48 touchdowns. And this is what I really want to tell the fans out there and anybody listening. That's the power of sports. That's the power of what this team did to me. I never met Dan Marino, but every time he threw that touchdown pass, every time they won that game, it helped me forget of what I went through and what I still was currently going through. Don Shula became my father figure. Like I'm so upset I never got to meet him in person. But like just his mannerisms and how like honorable he was. The story about how he was given the playbook against the Raiders in the playoff game and said, no, we don't win like that, and threw it away and they ended up losing. That's integrity. His qualities were the qualities I wanted. So this team became everything I wanted in life, from Dan Marino entertaining me to Don Shula being the father figure I always wanted. This team every Sunday helped me forget every problem I ever had. Now, to fast forward my parents' story, they ended up making a movie about my family. The movie is called I Love You to Death. It's about 50% accurate, so what have you.
I think they made it into a comedy instead of a serious film, right?
What they
without
did,
much of the abuse.
Well, that's the thing. They took out the physical abuse because that's not funny, and they put in the all my father's like his machismo, the way he would all these girlfriends, and my mom was this jealous lover, and that's part of the story. And they made a black comedy, funny. But it's one of those things where I had to live with it. My life was going to be different, but I mean, I coped with it by diving into sports and diving into my Dolphins. So I need that moment where the Dolphins win a Super Bowl, because that's the piece of my life that I haven't fixed. And I know I can't control it. I mean, I might wear my lucky shirt. I might sit on the couch if they're winning and never move. But you know what I need before I die? And I might die tomorrow. I might die in 50 years. I need to see them hoist that trophy.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I need that. And it would be poetic justice if they beat the Redskins.
Sure would. Well, they're not the Redskins anymore, but yes.
You're right.
The Washington football team, or whatever they want to call them.
But that's what they were called back then.
Yeah.
You know what? Ironically enough, I married a Washington fan.
Perfect.
So if they ever do go into the Super Bowl, it's going to be a rough 2 weeks around here. But I need that.
Okay.
I have all my chips in the center for Tua.
Yeah.
And
Y'all do.
Flores, and I'm like, guys, I know you never met me before, but for that 10-year-old kid that didn't get to see that Redskins win that Washington Super Bowl, and then Marino goes to Super Bowl, in '84, January of '85, and I remember saying to myself when he was playing that Super Bowl in January of '85, I knew 49ers were tough. I said to myself, oh, the football gods are going to give me this one because of what I went through for the last 2 years. Well, unfortunately, the football gods are waiting a little longer. And that 49er team was good. A lot of people forget they were 18-1. And the one game they lost was to the Steelers only by 3 points. They were tough.
Yeah, that was one of the best teams of all time. Anthony, I mean, that's an all-time story that we've heard on this podcast, and the fact it's all true. A couple things real quick. Number one, your father survived a shot to the head, a shot to the heart that just missed. What were these guys shooting with? Most people, the first shot to the head would have just ended it, but he survived. All this stuff. What? And he's still alive today? It's crazy.
It was a .22 caliber gun, and it was my father's gun. So they literally took my father's gun. And when they paid the guys $500 for the hit, they took that money out of my dad's wallet.
Jesus.
So here's the thing, Tone. And first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I know, this is very unique, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our stories are always, rainbows and butterflies and everything else. But I think what you did is you provided a real story of a real life situation, but also what tied you to becoming a Miami Dolphins fan and what has made you stick with the team for as long as you have. And let's be honest, I know a lot of other people have experienced, abuse, issues in their life, things that they have overcome. So just the fact that we don't talk about it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen in the world. So I appreciate you sharing it. And what are you doing now? What is your career? If I remember correctly, if you're a teacher now, so you're able to share this with some of the kids to persevere.
You know what? I entered education because one of the reasons why I entered education is because I lost my childhood. I fight for kids to never lose their childhood. One thing I tell kids all the time, and I teach 7th grade, so they're 12 years old about, which ironically enough, that's literally the age that it happened to me. Well, sorry. That was literally the age when my mom went to prison when I was 12 years old, because 10 years old is when it happened. And I remember I always tell the kids, be a kid. Don't grow up so fast. Enjoy being a kid, because you know what? When somebody steals your childhood from you, it's awful. And I will fight for any kid out there that if anybody wants to take their childhood away, that to me is beyond a tragedy. You never do that. We all grow up. We all adults. We all have those moments where we have to pay our mortgage and whatever we have to do. But as a kid, you be a kid. And that's one of the big reasons I entered education. And then there has been many, many kids out there that are going through similar things that I've gone through. I've had many kids come up to me going, I'm in a foster home. My parents are fighting. My parents are going to do a divorce. There's abuse in my house. And they'll literally look at me and say, how did you make it? And I'll tell them my story and tell them, you got to find hobbies and dive into things, the things that I did to get over it, and there's nothing wrong with seeking help. There's nothing wrong. It's not an embarrassment to seek a counselor out. There's not an embarrassment to ask for help. And one of the things that got me through it were teachers, when I'd go to school and these were the people out there that, entertained me for the day and talked to me and showed me compassion. I felt like that was my way of giving back. And dedicating my life to it. So this September, I'll be starting my 24th year in education. And it's awesome. And that's the thing. I may have lost my childhood, but I love my life now. I have a great wife. I have 2 great kids. Love my fins. I love my kids at school. I love what I teach. I always say to the kids, I say, when I'm teaching you a lesson, for 40 minutes, whatever it is, I want you to forget about every problem you have, because I'm taking you to another world. You know, whether it's medieval England or medieval Japan or the story of Henry VIII or whatever it is, I'm giving you that escape. That's what the Dolphins did for me. For 3 hours on a Sunday, that was my escape. And that's why I thank you guys, because, you know, I'm watching the game, and I got to admit, I'm a nervous wreck watching the games. I remember biting my fingernails during the Patriots game this year because I was like, Tua, we have to win this game. And he throws that first interception, and then we win. And my first thought is, tomorrow I get to listen to all my podcasts that I love. You know, and you guys are definitely on that list. And that's my escape. That's my moment where, you know, whether you guys talk for 30 minutes or an hour and a half, that's my escape.
And it also goes to show, Ian, and we talk about this all the time, you know, when we talk about the more serious topics, whether it's something with the cancer challenge or anything like that, there's real problems in the world, real problems, real people, real issues that are just dealt a bad hand in life. And we have fun on this podcast, talk sports, talk the Dolphins, and have a few laughs. But when it comes to the serious stuff, you know, it puts everything in perspective. And your story goes to show that even you were dealt a bad hand, bad luck, just how everything played out. You persevered, you fought through it, and now you're in a great place in your life, like you said. So for people out there listening, we know it gets tough at times. People, you know, get sicknesses, lose their jobs, lose a loved one, and it feels like the world's crumbling down around you. Just fight through it. And it's good to have an escape. It doesn't have to be the Dolphins. For us, it's probably the Dolphins. But if it's not, it's something else. It's good to have that escape to where, whether it's for a half-hour podcast a day or a couple times a week, or it's a show on TV or a book you read, just to clear your mind to not think about the real life stuff. Because that ain't going away. That's always going to be there, or at least until it's over. So I think your story will resonate with a lot of people.
Because everybody has obstacles. But I always say, your character is measured by what you do when things go wrong. Anybody can live in this world if everything's perfect, but that's not life. Nobody has the perfect life. We all have obstacles. We all have things we have to overcome. That's what defines your character. And that's true about this team too. You know, there are going to be challenges this season, and we have to overcome them. I know I keep bringing it back to the Dolphins, of course.
No, that's good.
Okay,
no, good.
But you know, the other thing that I think is a great message, and I know you send this to the kids, and I think this is a great message for even the adults, is, you know, even though today you may be in a really tough situation, you know, you may be dealt that really bad hand today, that doesn't mean tomorrow or next week or a year from now or 10 years from now, you're going to be in that exact same situation, right? And I think that's what people need to realize, because, you know, there are some people that are in an exact same situation as you are today, and they don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, or they're just so depressed and disappointed. And I think that happens to a lot of people that experience this, you know, but what they're doing today is not necessarily what they're going to be doing next week or the month after that. And things do get better. Things can get better for people. And I think you're a perfect walking example of that. So thank you for sharing this, Tone.
Well, one thing I tell the kids' school, and I tell my own daughter and son this, is, one, you can only control this moment. You can't control what happened yesterday, and you can't control what's going to happen tomorrow. You can only control this moment. And I always tell them, you know, one coping mechanism I like to do is make a list of all the things that you feel good about in your world, that you have. And I don't necessarily mean materialistic things. I mean things that you have that you really, really like about yourself. And read over that. And it does help to see all the positive in your life. And then I have students that go, I have no positive in my life. And then we sit down and we dig a little deeper, and they come up with a good, nice list of 20, 30 things. And I look at them and I go, now read over this list and read over it over and over again. And it will help. And you don't solve your problems all in one snap. It's not something that just magically happens. It takes time, you know, but if you find things out there that you're good at, that are the positive things in your life, and things out there that you can escape to, it does help. And then one day you wake up and you're like, listen, I came through this better. It's like shoveling snow. You know, halfway through you're shoveling snow, you got to stop and look back at how far
Ian's not going to get this reference.
Oh, yeah,
Florida.
I'm shoveling the beach sand.
I get it. I'm in Syracuse. I get the snow reference. Trust me. So here to wrap up, couple questions, sort of speed round. Number one, who played you in the movie?
There was a 10-year-old little kid that I don't remember his name. But I was very brief in the movie. I was beating up a toy dinosaur and I got my finger like bit. My father put it in some water. I played a bit part.
Okay.
It was the comedic. It was a comedy part, right? That's what it sounds like, a comedic.
Well, I was supporting role.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if it was some young star that
Macaulay
went on to be
Culkin, right?
Yeah.
That would have been
The movie had some really big names in it. We were talking
saw that River
Kevin
Phoenix,
Kline,
right?
Joan Plowright.
I'm gonna go back and watch it because I've never seen it. So
Tracy
Woman. Yep.
They had some big names in it.
Second, how do you think the Miami Dolphins will do this year? What's a quick little prediction for the upcoming season?
I'm all in on Tua. I'm all in on the team. I love this team. I got to be honest with you. I have not been this excited since the Ricky Williams days. And I still to this day cannot believe the Ricky Williams teams did not make the playoffs. That team was loaded. How do I think we're going to do? I think 11 wins is realistic. I think that I don't think the Super Bowl is going to be hoisted. I don't think the trophy is going to be hoisted this year. But I think a playoff win is going to happen this year. I think a year from today, if we have this conversation, we're going to be like, oh, man, they're in the right direction. They're ready to take the next step. I see the Dolphins as like a year behind the Bills. I see that trajectory.
Yep.
And we just got our Stephon Diggs, right? We just got our Stephon Diggs, right?
Yes, I wanted Kyle Pitts because I read all the hype too. But you know what I learned? If you look at like what people were saying last year, Kyle Pitts was not on anybody's radar. And then all of a sudden everybody starts liking Kyle Pitts. But Waddle was. And I am really excited about Waddle. Really, really. I mean, speed kills. It always will. You got to get some guys for Tua. You know, if the key is the offensive line. If the offensive line can give him 2.5 to 3 seconds, this offense is going to average 28 points a game.
That would be great.
They need that line to come together. And another thing I was telling my wife today is people don't realize how young this team is.
Very, very young.
All the experience they got last year, that's going to be good for at least 3 extra wins next year, just the experience alone. So I'm excited. I think our schedule is favorable. If we can start out at the 4-2 with the first 6 games, by the time I go to that Carolina game, Big E, I'll be high-fiving you talking playoffs. I'll be talking home field advantage.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
That'd be awesome. Tone, thanks for your time today. I didn't want to interrupt your story with a Manscaped read. I didn't feel it was the right show for that. So let me give them a quick mention at the end. I won't even do the read because it's probably totally inappropriate for this type of show. Everyone go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code DolphinsTalk. Save 20% in your order. Get free shipping, whether it's the Lawnmower 4.0, the Shears 2.0, the Weed Whacker. Ian's holding up some ball deodorant down there.
2 words, ball deodorant.
Ball deodorant. It's a crop mop, the crop mat. They got shower gel. You name it. Manscaped.com. Promo code DolphinsTalk. Save 20% and get free shipping. Didn't want to interrupt that story with a Manscaped read.
Good move.
Yes.
Before you go,
yes.
I love this team so much, and I do know that it's going to be on a podcast, but I did get inked up this year.
Look at that,
man.
Old school logo, too. I love it.
Got to go old school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Biggie, I know you're partial to the new logo, but us guys that grew up in the 80s, we missed the logo.
I like them both.
This is sharp as hell.
Yeah,
that's why I got it. It's so sharp. I love it.
I like them both. I will admit. When I first saw the new one, the first couple of years, I'm like, eh. Then it kind of grew on me. I'm like, this isn't bad. It sort of signifies a new era, a new time in the franchise's history. So it doesn't bother me, but the old school logo, and the old school, I don't count the one from like the 90s with Jimmy Johnson. That was like a cartoon. I don't like that one. I'm talking old school 80s.
Yeah,
the 80s one. Yeah.
I don't even like the orange jerseys when they threw them out.
No, I don't like that either. People like that and they get all excited. I do not like that at all.
That's associated with losing.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I got a question for Big E. You're Mr. Positivity. Can you name any move that they've done that you were like, ooh, I'm not happy about that?
Are you talking about this past offseason?
No, I'm talking about your fandom.
Oh, well, of course, I always do the hindsight drafting, right? And when when we didn't draft a running back last year, I was a little bummed about that, but obviously we had a Myles Gaskin that came out and killed it. Dion Jordan, I remember where I was sitting. I was in Daytona Beach for work, and I was sitting, I think it was at like a casino, and I was watching how we traded up to pick up Dion Jordan. I'm not a big college guy. If people follow me, they know I don't really watch too much college, but I was like, this guy might be another Jason Taylor type, right? Because that's what he was being said to be. And sure enough, he was, I would say, one of the, if not the biggest bust for the Miami Dolphins. So, and I'll tell you too, 2 years ago, when it was 2 games into the season and I'm sitting there at Hard Rock Stadium watching the drubbing by the New England Patriots, I left. I walked out of there and I was mad. And I the tweet is still out there. I never deleted it. And I said, Mr. Ross, you need to do something about this because this is horrible. Mm-hmm. Right. And I after I tweeted it out, I kind of calmed down and said, all right, well, I know there's nothing he can do right now. And we just have to wait because supposedly we were tanking for Tua, which I never agreed with. But that's, I've had my moments. I'm a fan through good and bad. And I get upset after the Bills game. This past year, the last game of the season, shut the lights off in my bedroom. I curled up in a fetal position and I just sat there in the dark in my bedroom by myself because I was so disappointed. We were this close to being in the playoffs last year when no one expected us to be that close. Yeah,
but if you look at that Bills game last year, look at that starting offense. I think there are 3 guys still left. I mean, it's going to be a totally different game this year. Oh, and speaking of the 2013 draft, that first round was horrible for everybody.
It was a bad first round. It
was. The one move that Miami made that I was like, ugh, was when they traded for AJ Feely. That move I knew from the get-go was going to be bad.
Sign of desperation.
Even the Drew Brees thing. I wanted Drew Brees, but when they traded for Culpepper, which I wasn't that happy about, I kept saying to myself, well, this guy threw for 4,700 yards a year before. Maybe, just maybe. But the AJ Feely thing, that was the low point. Yeah. Even lower than back when we lost the Super Bowl to the Washington team. See, I'm trying to tie it back to the story.
No, I see you.
So, Tone, thank you so much for a few moments of time. Is there anything you want to plug? Any social media? Any Facebook? Anything?
Well, I'm not on Facebook. I don't even know what Snapchat, Tickamatalk is.
Tickamatalk, Snapchat. Well, if you're talking to 7th graders, they all know. You just have.
They all know. That's right. Just ask them.
They laugh at me. I'm the clueless dad now. But I do have a Twitter. That's how we got hooked up. Yeah. My Twitter handle, if anybody wants to put me over the top for 400 followers, I'm at 398. I'm a Tone Lantern. Like Green Lantern, but Tone Lantern, because my other favorite thing are superheroes. And I would love to talk sports with you. I love to talk Dolphins and comic books and whatever. Awesome. I'm always positive, though. I don't talk anything negative.
That's great. Tone, thank you for a few moments of your time. And once again, I'd like to thank everyone for watching and listening to another episode of the Fan Series. Everyone, have a great day.
Hands up, everybody. Thank you, Tone.
Thank you.